Okay, let's get this out of the way right now. Outlast is an amazing game that is incredibly well done for a team's first horror game, unlike some other horror games, and it's also easily one of the most memorable horror games I've ever played. That being said, this game has its flaws, and I will be getting harshly critical at some point, so if you don't want to hear any harsh criticism towards this game, then please don't watch this video. So I want to get its downfalls out of the way first. Firstly, the jump scares. They aren't great to me. Not because the animation for them is bad or anything, but because of their execution. Heck, in my last video, we talked all about jump scares, so I won't go too much into it here, but pretty much every jump scare in this game feels cheap. None of it feels like it has any build up or suspense, just random loud jump scare when entering a certain area, and that's just not how jump scares should be done to me. I know Outlast is more of an action-based horror game, not in the guns and explosion kind of way, but more of the being in constant danger and being chased down kind of way, which means I can forgive the jump scares execution somewhat, but I wish there was more than like 2 jump scares that are actually built up to. Although I'd be lying if I said that it didn't make me jump at least once or twice. Secondly, the chase scenes didn't scare me too much. Although this is most likely due to me playing tons of chase-heavy horror games like Dark Deception before playing Outlast. But I think one of the other reasons the chases didn't scare me too much is, I know a lot of the time I notice I feel way more tense when I can hear the enemy chasing me, which rarely happens in Outlast. However, in games like Dark Deception... Oh my god! Yeah, you see my point? But either way, some of the chase scenes did get me tense, even if most of them didn't. So now we can move on to the positives. Okay, let's start with the controls, and holy moly, these controls are tight. This is one of the few horror games where it's actually really fun to run from enemies. There's only been once or twice where the controls felt a tad clunky, but other than that, they worked perfectly. Why did my phone have to go? Jumping over desks, slamming doors open and shut is so much fun, and being able to look behind you while running adds to the immersion immensely, even if for a majority of the time I forgot it was even a feature that was in the game. Even entering and leaving hiding places feels smooth. Like, how? How do you do that? The only time it felt clunky was when the jumping didn't work sometimes, which often wasn't the case, so it's mostly forgivable. Next, the soundtrack. Outlast does use the typical violin music quite often, but I think Outlast does it in a way that's unique to Outlast and Outlast alone. It sounds so distinct from every other horror game that anytime I hear a piece from this game, I immediately know it's from Outlast. On the topic of that, what about the sound design in general? It's amazing. That is all you need to know. Now, this is a survival horror game, so what makes it survival horror other than the running and hiding from enemies? Well, this game oftentimes will put you in rooms with tons of low light, meaning you have to use your night vision on your camera. But the longer you use it, the more the battery drains, meaning batteries are one of the key components to your survival, which is a nice spin on the typical rationing ammo and health items. Now, there are a few parts where you'll feel like you're going insane while running through the dark not knowing where to go, although I think this was an intentional design decision, as it does take place in a mental asylum. Now, how about the story? It's alright. A short and simplified version of the story goes as such. You are an investigator called Miles Upshur. Why did I say called Miles Upshur? That sounds so dumb. You are an investigator named Miles Upshur, and you're going to try to expose the Murkoff Corporation as you received an email allegedly telling you that some terrible experiments are being done at Mount Massive Asylum, and
that's no good.
So you go in there, see dead people, and immediately try to leave, only to be thrown to a lower floor by an enemy known as Chris Walker. And throughout the game, you start hearing about this entity known as the Walrider, which you eventually encounter for yourself. And finally, you kill Billy, who is the host for the Walrider, and then you get gunned down and become the new host of the Walrider.
Gott im Himmel. You have become the host. Jesus God, what is that thing?
So yeah, story's alright. Oh, and this is also one of the most tense horror games I've ever played. Nowhere near as tense as Alien Isolation, but still got my heart racing at a lot of points. So in conclusion, I think you should 100% play Outlast if you're a fan of horror games, and it's highly accessible as it's on PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Also, if you're wondering why I didn't go much into the enemy AI and how great it is and such, it's because I'd rather you play the game to experience that for yourself. So good luck!